All right, folks, I got a great guest today, Leo Zagami. Leo Zagami is going to be joining me right now in just a few moments, answering all questions about the Pope. If anybody knows anything about this new Pope, Leo, it's Leo. So, folks, I got to say, big things happening on my channel. I did the Jamie Kennedy in-person podcast. That's going up pretty soon. I'm going to put that up on YouTube. It's also going to go on my back channel, ninoscorner.tv, right there. There it is. Also, folks, hit that notification button. Please hit the notification button. It helps me help you. Also, it's going to be great. Leo Zagami, the guy I'm about to bring on right now, ex-Illuminati, Jesuit priest in training. The guy knows everything there is to know about the Vatican. So he's going to answer some very important questions about Pope Leo. Pope Leo, who also now is coming at it. He could be a black man. Maybe. We'll see. So we're going to hear Leo talk about this. Also, folks, ninoscorner.tv. Fire. Absolute fire. I got Mike King up there right now talking about what's going on with Israel. Yeah. There's a lot going on with Israel right now. Is Israel going to be saved for last? What's going on with Benjamin Netanyahu? Is he going to get arrested for war crimes? Question mark. What's going on? Trump turning his back on Israel. There's a lot of things. Is he going to declare Palestine its own state? Mike King, we go into that on ninoscorner.tv. I'll also be talking about that tomorrow morning on my morning show. So that's going to be fire. 9:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, always, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. This is kind of an off day. I hope a lot of people jump on. We're going live on X and on YouTube. Also, 𝗬𝗵𝗶𝗃 is coming on, talking about Elon Musk. Is there 3 Elons? One of them an alien? I don't know. Is he a clone? Is he made in a laboratory? I don't know. He's going to be talking about it. We'll be getting into that. 𝗬𝗏𝗡𝗃's coming on. Bo Pony's coming back on. A round table discussing Tina Peters. I'll be doing that tomorrow on ninoscorner.tv. That's way too hot for YouTube. Other than that, folks, happy Mother's Day to all the beautiful mothers out there. It's your special day today. I'm hoping I get another one with my mom, but I'm doing what I got to do. I'm going to be heading up there after this broadcast to go celebrate with her. She may not know it's Mother's Day, but I'm still going to be there for her, with her during this. And also, folks, remember, get your Noble Gold. Noble Gold, here's the hard truth. Every 6 years, your dollar loses half its buying power. That's $100,000 in savings today. It could feel like $50,000 by 2031. But there's a way to protect and preserve your money, and that is gold, folks. You got to get the gold. Noble Gold Investments makes it easy to own gold or silver. No pressure, no call centers, just honest one-on-one support. Open a qualified account and get a free 10-ounce silver American flag bar. NobleGoldInvestments.com. That's Noble Gold Investments. Get started on it now, and you won't be regretting it. Trust me. All right, let's bring on Leo. Leo Zagami, folks. Here he is. Leo, how's it going, my man?
Happy Mother's Day to my mother, your mother, all the mothers. It's a very important day, and so we like to do that.
Yeah, thank you, Leo. Man, there's no one better to bring on right now, and I've gotten a lot of requests for you, to come back on the show, and you will be the general in the General's Tent June 26th, 5 p.m., folks. You'll be able to ask him whatever questions you need to ask him, and this is just going to be for ninoscorner.tv. But let's get into this. Okay, so now we have the Pope. We both thought it was going to be a black guy or an Asian. We didn't know what it was going to be, but he's definitely a woke Pope, right, Leo?
Well, that was ultimately what was the, we couldn't be sure about the color. And of course, now they're also coming out with the admission that his grandparents were actually identifying as black before moving from New Orleans to Chicago. So, and not only that, one of them was also born in Haiti and the other one in New Orleans. Notoriously, the immigration from Haiti brought along with them voodoo, which became both Louisiana voodoo as well as hoodoo. And that means that, of course, this could be the black Pope we have been waiting for. So for all those people who said, oh, Leo didn't get it wrong, got it wrong. No, maybe I got it half right, let's say. I mean, he doesn't look black, but apparently within the conclave, he was promoted also as such, because there was a need for a African pope, but there was, unfortunately for them, too much clashing of forces within the African continent between the progressive and the conservative ones, so they couldn't really come out with a name that would please everybody. Then we had, on the first day of the conclave, the Filipino-Chinese Tagle, which was a favorite, Antonio Luis Tagle, who got 18 votes, but unfortunately, there was some people who were not pleased with him, and there was the Italians who wanted to still push Parolin. The 17 Italians, a rather consistent minority, of course, the cardinal electors. So in the end, the Jesuits had already kind of arranged of this, and that's why when Dolan arrived there in Rome, he himself, during the general congregations that precede the conclave, was rather surprised, because he didn't know this guy. They said they went to him because, of course, the U.S. Bishop Conference is a place where everybody knows everybody, you know, and Dolan, of course, Cardinal Dolan is one of these majestic figures within the U.S. Bishop Catholic Conference. So they went to him and asked him, who is this guy? Who is this? Well, I heard about him, but I don't really know him. We don't really consider him an American because most of the time he's abroad. He's been abroad most of his adult life in missions, especially in South America, in Peru. And so I don't really know the guy. So he himself was rather surprised that when he got there in the conclave, and you saw that the conclave took a little over 24 hours. So it was kind of like, everything was already arranged.
Predetermined. It was predetermined.
Yeah, absolutely, by the Jesuits, because when you're talking about a guy who has connections with South America, connections with Chicago, we are talking about the Augustinian order, and that's also something that I would like to explain for your viewers eventually.
Please do. Please do. Go ahead.
Now, the Augustinian order is an old order, older than the Jesuit order, but they have a something that kind of puts them together and makes them work together, which is their mission in education. Villanova University, I make an example, where this Pope came out from, and his whole life in the Augustinian order was also immersed not only in missions abroad to help the poor, but also in education. So education means, like I explained in my latest book, which, as you know, is dedicated to the Jesuit order, means preparing the elite, preparing the people who run our society within their educational system. And I said, in fact, that this Pope will not be a Jesuit because, of course, every other order in the Catholic Church is controlled by the Jesuits. They don't need to have a guy who is nominally, officially a Jesuit to control the church. This guy will always have to refer to the Jesuit general, to the Father Superior General of the Jesuits. But at the same time, he himself was a general of his order, which has a similar kind of military structure, because every order that has a general at the top is, of course, an order which has an inspiration from a military environment, even if they're not formally military. But the Augustinian order was the order of Martin Luther. And this is very important, Nino, because Martin Luther proved to be the guy who created the biggest problem for them. And he came from this order. So in a way, the Augustinians have promised to get back into the fold those Christians who broke with Martin Luther.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me just ask you this for a second. Was he like a last-second change-up? I mean, because once Trump won, were they thinking about putting somebody else in there, and then Trump won?
First of all those people, like I told you the other time, that thought there might be the possibility of a conservative pope were eluding themselves, because this pope was decided by Bergoglio, by Pope Francis, who rigged the conclave, like I explained, with 80% of the cardinals. And once you have 80% and you need only 75%, it's you who decide who is the next
what I mean by that is, with the globalists planning to put in somebody else, and then Trump wins the election.
There were two choices that the globalists, I mean, there was the faction of the World Economic Forum that was pushing for Cardinal Turkson. There was the 𝗬𝗵𝗶𝗹 faction, the Chinese faction that was pushing for Antonius Ulrich Tagle. The Jesuits decided for a compromise here because, of course, Francis had prepared this guy for a long time. He brought him to Rome in 2023, where he made him a cardinal. Only, this year, on the 6th of February, he was actually appointed cardinal bishop, which is, to explain, the military. You have generals, you have various stars when you are a general. You have, of course, a general with more stars than the other. Now, imagine this. A week before Bergoglio was brought to the hospital, he actually nominated this guy cardinal bishop, which is like the higher level, so you can become really a 𝗵𝗶𝗶𝗶, because it's true that potentially everybody in that electors, 133 cardinals, can become pope, but in reality only the cardinal bishops become pope. So it was all very much prepared. When you see the story, another thing that I will suggest that you see, in my book I explain the importance of a figure called James Martin, who is the founder of Outreach, and he's editor-at-large of the Jesuit magazine called America Magazine Jesuit Review. He apparently is the Jesuit handler of this Pope. And in fact, when you go back and see the last few years what he did for him, you see that he paved the way for him. Immediately after
he maneuvered him.
No, but he was also presented on the America Jesuit Review. Immediately after Francis nominated him and brought him to Rome and started to get him to escalate his positions, there was all the way there was James Martin publishing articles, pushing him, participating in conferences with him. You have to understand that the Jesuits are always the controllers after the Second Vatican Council. And for example, Joseph Ratzinger had as a controller, as I explained in my latest book, Father Federico Lombardi, who was an expert of communication and press, just like James Martin is here in America for the Jesuits. So when David Muir from ABC, who was broadcasting from Rome, announced that the Pope was elected, who did you think then he went and interviewed first? James Martin, who happened to be in St. Peter's Square. Then the day after, David Muir re-interviewed James Martin, but along with him, there was an Opus Dei member, Reverend John Walk, which is a priest of the Opus Dei, which, as you know, is also a very important faction within the Catholic Church. And there were these two priests, along with David Muir, discussing where the Pope will go and live and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I really am shocked at the level of bowing down to the Vatican of the American media. I mean, if you watch in the last few days, ABC, CBS, NBC, it was like watching Vatican TV.
Because they know, the media knows that he's going to be he's going to be the opposition of Trump, anti-Trump, open borders, everything.
Everything that the Jesuits push in the universities and push with their politicians, the politics of the open borders and everything else, is pushed by this Pope. Now, there is only one thing that, this Pope seemed to be a little bit more conservative when it came down to genderism, but already the media is saying, well, in 12 years, things can change. And so that's it. Never mind. Let's move on, because this is the choice that the Jesuits wanted. And it was very clear from the start. And I said, I mean, if you go and rewind what I told you the last time we talked, I told you the next Pope will be made in the image of Pope Francis, because Pope Francis said that only 50% of Vatican II was implemented. And so you needed somebody like him. And that's where, that's what so what's
going to be the agenda of this Pope? What's he going to do? He's going to definitely defy Trump. He's going to oppose Trump's mass deportations. I'm pretty sure the arrests that are coming. He's going to be a thorn on his side.
When people say Leo was dead wrong about the next Pope, where was I dead wrong when I said that it will be first of all, a leftist Pope? It will be maneuvered by the Jesuits, and it will be in line with everything Pope Francis.
I think people thought, that he said he was going to be Asian or black, but he is.
He's
kind of black.
Well, let me also announce you, the guy is actually black, and that is another and it's not any kind of black, because you see, he has put, he announced now his emblem, his symbol. Maybe you can show it. It's very important to interpret a symbol when a pope arrives.
Hey, Alex, can you get the symbol? What do you look up? Pope Leo's symbol? Is that what it's called?
The emblem of Pope Leo XIV.
Emblem of Pope Leo XIV.
And you will see in the emblem the 𝗬𝗶𝗱𝗲, which is a symbol of New Orleans, which connects with France. You will see also you see on the upper part you have the 𝗬𝗨, which connects his French Haitian roots, Prévost, and that goes back to New Orleans. And then under you have a heart with an arrow. And like I explained in this book, volume 4 of my confessions here, the heart with the arrow is the symbol of the Catholic Masons connected to the Jesuits. And also, he's from Peru, Pachamama, guys. Pachamama is another important subject that maybe people need to understand. Is this worship that at times requires even human sacrifice that is conducted in South America and in Peru in particular. This is the symbol. You see the heart
yes,
with the arrow. And
yep.
I have in my book here, volume 4, I have a number of pages dedicated where I say here, you remember that 1999 film with Arnold Schwarzenegger, End of Days?
Yes.
In that film, you will see that symbol. And there was a paramasonic order that was basically in this horror movie linked to the end of times, and the sacred heart is their symbol. When
people say, hey, you know, he's the last pope. I mean, I thought there'd be no pope after Francis. You know, I didn't know what to say to them. Okay, he's going to be the last pope. Is this the last pope? I mean, when they say the last pope, what
it is the last pope, because like maybe people need to hear me a little bit clearly, and I said it a little bit the other time, but maybe we need to go in it further. On the 30th of June last year, Pope Francis and his Jesuits published a document about synodality and about the fact that the primacy of the papacy didn't no longer needed to exist, that it was an artificial construct. And actually responsible of it was Ignatius of Antioch. And this is very interesting, because in his first speech to the cardinals, the morning after he was elected, he mentions Ignatius of Antioch, which is the other famous Ignatius of the Catholic Church, because there's other Ignatius of Antioch or Ignazio Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits. So the 𝗬𝗨, which is also connected to the Priory of Zion, is connected to many other things. It was also connected to the fact that in France you had, and that I explain in this book here, volume 6.66, the first Black Mass was celebrated in France by a queen, Caterina de' Medici, who wanted to heal her son. She was so desperate that she employed a Catholic priest. They sacrificed a baby, and that is basically here you have the illustration of Catherine de' Medici in my book, volume 6.66. So when she's celebrating also, that was the first Black Mass. Then Black Masses started to become very popular in the French royalty. These Black Masses, though, they always have to be celebrated. A real Black Mass needs to be celebrated by a priest to be a real Black Mass. The cross is inverted. Everything is inverted. The prayers are inverted, but you have to have a genuine priest.
What's the purpose of them being inverted? What is their belief on that?
Because of course, I mean, it's the opposite of good, it's evil.
Right.
And so the devil is everything opposite to God, in the sense you are looking at the opposite. So that's why they reverse the prayers and everything else. So France has this link with the Prévost. 𝗬𝗶𝗱𝗲, which, like I said, is also a symbol of the Priory of Zion, by the way, which is a Catholic Masonic order, which we all heard about because of Dan Brown and the 𝗬𝗵𝗂𝗁. Of course, the real Priory of Zion is very different thing from the fictitious one of Dan Brown. Let me specify that. But in reality, when it comes down to his Haitian roots, I wrote about this in volume 8, the connection that Haiti has with the very roots also of the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite, which are to be found in the Jesuits, but also in Haiti. Haiti was a colony that then, as you know, became independent, and that led to a lot of people like the ancestors of this Pope going to Louisiana, and that's where voodoo was established, coming from Haiti, no? But in volume 8, I explain how Stéphane Morin, because the thing is that both Stéphane Morin and another guy who was the founder of another group of powerful Illuminati, he was a Creole, Martins de Pasqually, founder of the 𝗬𝗂𝗿𝗲, they mixed up these animist elements together with the elements of Freemasonry and Catholic Freemasonry, and that's the very roots of the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite. So actually, there is elements of Freemasonry and voodoo that come together.
Wow, it's all connected.
They are connected. In fact, I don't know if I can find it here because this book is very big and I have to go through the whole thing. But there is actually a symbol in particular which shows how not only they are connected, but I mean, they use at times even in voodoo Masonic symbols. This is something that happens. And Haiti, still to this day, is controlled by Freemasonry. The gangs that control Haiti at the moment, which, as you know, is a complete mess, Haiti, especially if you are a white person, it's very dangerous to go there. But right. The guy who holds power at the moment is known as 𝗵𝗶𝗀. I don't know if you ever heard of 𝗵𝗶𝗀.
Really?
Yeah, 𝗵𝗶𝗀 goes around with a big chain with the compass and square of
Freemasonry. I've heard of this.
𝗵𝗶𝗀 is the most. I mean, the guy is super powerful in Haiti.
Yeah, there he is.
There he is, and he goes around most of the time with a compass and square on his chain. So the actual influence that these things have are real. They're not just theoretical or, born out of a conspiracy theory.
But let me ask you this. So Pope is here, Pope Leo is here, and, obviously he has an agenda. What are we going to see from him? Is he just going to be a headache because he has 1.5 billion Catholics going to be listening to him, and he's from America, so he's going to have the American ear, especially the immigrants here in America.
Did you see what happened yesterday on CNN? Did you see what happened yesterday on CNN?
What happened on CNN yesterday? I don't watch CNN.
No, but it's important to watch The Enemy. I always suggest
you're right. You're right.
So The Enemy made a whole poll asking a question to the audience. Was Pope Leo elected to fight Donald J. Trump? 63% of the viewers said yes.
But what can he really do? I mean, the guy making the laws is Trump. He really can't do anything, right?
No, he can do a lot. And I'll tell you why he can do a lot. Because when we're talking the Vatican, we're talking about one of the most powerful also intelligence agencies on the planet. We are talking about a country that has ears and say many things that have to do with geopolitics, not only religion. So, when, for example, we had during 𝗀𝗵𝗋𝗄 him going and visiting the Sandinists. I mean, we're talking about Operation Condor. We're talking about everything that ought to involve, like we said, 𝗀𝗑𝗏𝗏 during the dirty war in Argentina. I mean, it's not only when you are controlling all these Catholics around the world, because you are controlling them in a way, you can push any psyop you want.
Right. They're going to listen to him. They believe he's anointed by God.
So he's going to start to wage war, like I said, from day one against Donald J. Trump, saying, everything against his policies because he doesn't agree with his immigration policy, doesn't agree with any change. Is going to be another.
Be careful. Yeah. Be careful of that on Fluff Tube.
Because like I explained in my latest book, volume 12, you have an organization called the Eco-Jesuits. And the whole thing of change was decided by the Black Pope Pedro Arrupe at the end of the 60s, who then, it's very easy for these people to implement their policies because they do a seemingly innocent conference filled with priests, invite a bunch of politicians and tell the politicians what they should say or should not say. And the politicians, if they want to stay with the support of the church that brings them votes, they have to say, yes. We will agree with whatever you say.
Whatever the agenda is. This guy's gonna have much more influence than my audience believes, because I thought, well, Trump's not gonna listen to anybody. Trump's gonna do what he wants to do, which he will. And I believe these mass deportations are really gonna pick up speed. Mass arrests are gonna start happening. Absolutely. What can the Pope do? How could he influence it? I know he's gonna influence immigrants to protest, probably cause.
When you're talking here, and I explained this in my latest book, and I told you already that the Democrat Party is the political arm of the Jesuits. So yes, what can he do? He can use the Democrats to continue and harass this, and also their judiciary, because who controls the judiciary here? It seems like even the Supreme Court, that nominally and officially is supposed to be in the hands of the conservatives, is no longer answering to Trump.
No. There's an inside civil war brewing that I believe is going to, we're trying to put the lid on it so it doesn't reach American society.
You have here a society. No, but we have a big problem with this new pope. This new pope is going to be endorsed by the Oprah Winfrey's of the situation and by all the Hollywood Jimmy Kimmel, Fallon, whatever, Jimmy Kimmel, no? Jimmy Kimmel is the guy who goes on there and every night spews propaganda against Donald J. Trump. And now, of course, with this new pope, he has it even more easy because, you see, who are these immigrants who arrived here in America, these illegal immigrants? Where are they coming from? Let's discuss a little bit this new pope. This new pope has a history, especially with Venezuelan immigrants in Peru, of protecting them and stuff. And he's going to start saying that the Venezuelans that are here, which include a bunch of gang members, Renerago and all that, well, they're treated bad. Trump is treating them bad and all that. But if we are honest about this pope has been a great protector from day one of his career, both when he was in the Augustinians, both when he was in Peru as a bishop. He protected of little girls as young as 7 years of age. He protected, wasn't even a member of the Augustinians, but he was put in his monastery there to chill for a few years next to a school, which was basically a school full of children. And that is what they do. Because you see, the Augustinian order, and this is a fact that was actually denounced even by the left-wing media, because that the interesting thing, Nino, is that now the left-wing media is starting to have some problems here, because they realize that this pope has, in a way, the Guardian has denounced the fact that his order, because he was the general of this order. So when you are the general of the order, you have a responsibility to denounce those monks, because this is a monastic order which does a very, within their vows, they don't have the vow of stability, meaning that they can be moved from one monastery to the other, and it's like I said, a very ancient order. But he has been found over and over again to turn on the other side when it comes to matters regarding sexual abuse. And this is of a gravity that was denounced just the other day on Democracy Now!, which is a leftist outlet. There was actually an argument live on TV between the director of SNAP, the organization for the abuse of priests, who himself was a young guy, who was denouncing this new pope. And then there was, the classical media Catholic guy from Catholic news agencies. So we did a lot to denounce this and that. Maybe Pope Francis didn't do enough. Like I wrote in my book, which I terminated the day after Pope Francis died. The day after Pope Francis died, the Black Pope immediately said, "Oh, Pope Francis could have done more. Well, everybody could have done more, but they never did anything. And so they just moved this priest around, and instead the director of SNAP asks to move.
That's what the church does. They move them around. I know they do that here in El Paso. There's tons that come in and out of here in El Paso.
Yeah.
The Catholic Church does that.
And
they just move these guys around.
Move these guys around.
Protect them.
Protect them. While instead, the guy from SNAP asks, we need to ask the new Pope to establish a canon law, because the canon law is the law that rules the church and the whole hierarchy, that as soon as these people are discovered, they are defrocked, they are no longer priests, and they can no longer ever come near a child. And this is, is normal. But unfortunately, these leftists have a problem, it seems, with that. And I noticed that immediately, even Democracy Now! brought up immediately another professor from Fordham University, the Jesuit University, who is actually outspoken about being a gay priest. He's open about it, and he's Catholic. I mean, you can't be but now there is a new thing in the Catholic Church. You can, as long as you don't practice sexuality.
Well, I mean, that's just, I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, it's insane. I mean,
there's a lot here. Leo, can we go back to ninoscorner.tv and talk about this? I'll bring you on in the General's tent, June 26th, 5 p.m. You'll take questions from the audience, because there's a lot to unpack here.
Absolutely. I think you told me that we want to also discuss the subject of UFOs on another episode.
Yes, I have you scheduled. Are we going to?
That is going to be another very interesting subject.
Because they are going to bring in the alien card, correct?
There is going to be definitely also something to do with that, and there is definitely a lot to discuss with that and the new Pope. So we can. He'll be the one to bring it in. I mean, remember that Pope Leo XIII, he based his name on that. Was the guy who inaugurated the 𝗪𝗶𝗹 𝗠𝗲, which is the present observatory of the Vatican. So, I mean, just to announce that there is also some interesting elements that will come out during our interview on the 7th when we do it.
All right, folks. It'll be at ninoscorner.tv, and then you're going to be the general on ninoscorner.tv. Yeah, I have you scheduled for like next week or in the next few days, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that'll be on ninoscorner.tv talking about, is this Pope going to bring in the alien card agenda, whatever. We know what he's going to do already. He's going to defy Trump at every turn. He's going to be a headache. Just how big of a headache, I guess we'll see. Go ahead, Leo.
It's going to be a big headache. Remember that in the end, he's going to get somehow we're going to move towards the midterm elections. And that's when probably his political nature is going to become so obvious. I mean, no longer a Pope is really taking care of the church. With the new church that the Jesuits are providing us with, it's a church that wants to deal with the political side. That's why also he took the name Leo. Leo XIII, in reality, made a social critic about the workers and everything, but he wasn't a socialist as they want to portray him. He actually also passed 2 encyclicals, which I mentioned in my new book. By chance, this book came out before the election of the Pope, but I talk about Pope Leo because Pope Leo XIII made 2 encyclicals against Freemasonry. So he was pretty outspoken against Freemasonry. While instead, this Pope is going the opposite way. And when actually they asked him, why did you choose this name? Yesterday, he came out with the admission that he was helped by the AI.
Wow, really? Artificial intelligence. That's pretty interesting.
I mean, wow. That is very interesting because, I wrote 3 books about starting from the age of cyber Satan, artificial intelligence and robotics to volume 7, which is about still cyber Satan.
And these are thick books, man. These are a lot. These are full of information. I mean, each of these books, how many are there? There's 12 books, right?
12 books. So of course, I suggest you start from the top rather than the bottom so that you can descend, in this hellish... it is quite unbelievable that in the end we have actually a bunch of seemingly innocent priests that in reality are ruling the world from a place called Borgo Santo Spirito, which means the quarter of the Holy Spirit. And that is the Holy Spirit that we saw in the conclave that that Dolan was talking about. They had already set everything up. And it was like...
So what was the purpose of Trump putting out that image of him wearing the Pope outfit?
Because, of course, he wanted to send a message to the conclave, a message against those bishops who wanted to bring a pope that was even worse than this one. Now, I don't know how can you get worse than this one, because I don't think that you can go worse than Pope Leo XIV. Even Cardinal Antonio Luis Tagle, in a way, could have been more genuine, or an African pope. So he wanted to send a message that he knew very well about what was going on. But he knew also very well that after Pope Francis electing 80% of the conclave, there would be no way he could influence. I mean, Cardinal Dolan, who he had appointed Trump as his friend to go there, you know, the Archbishop of New York, and verify if it was possible to usher in a conservative, was left with just saying, you know, he himself admitted that this guy came out of nowhere, and you know, everybody was talking about it even before I arrived. So,
wow, incredible. Leo, thank you so much for joining me. Folks, get his book. You want to put the link up there one more time, Alex, just so people can know where to go. I think Alex may have also put it down in the description. There's the book, Confessions of 𝗏𝗏𝗏. This is great, man. Leo, I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to you on ninoscorner.tv this week and the General's Tent. Thank you so much, Leo.
Thank you for having me on, and thank you for your audience. At times, I see they are very fierce critics. So that's okay. Yeah. You need to be critic, but you also have to understand when it's time to rather than criticize, open a book and go deeper into the topic. Because by going deeper into the topic, then you can really criticize.
They have to do their research first.
Yes.
You got to be roundabout. Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. All right, folks, please like and share this video. Get it out there. I appreciate Leo Zagami for coming on. Thank you so much, Leo. Gracias.
Take care. Gracias,
amigo.
I bless you.
Leo. I need it. I need a lot of blessings.
I'm not
a lot of blessings, believe me. Jeez. All right. Thanks, folks. We're out. Peace.